Using the science of weather to solve crimes or reconstruct events is known as forensic meteorology. Such detective work played a key role in making the world aware of one of the worst nuclear disasters in history at Chernobyl in the Ukraine 30 years ago next week. Ironically, the first hint of the accident outside of the Soviet Union occurred about 800 miles away at a different nuclear facility, Forsmark, in Sweden, on the Baltic Sea. On April 28, 1986, sensors there detected radioactivity on the clothing of workers arriving at the plant. Within hours, Swedish meteorologists had collected air samples and traced back the winds and identified the likely source of the radioactivity as the nuclear reactor at Chernobyl, near Kiev, in the northern Ukraine. This was even before Soviet officials acknowledged the accident, which had occurred more than 2 days earlier, when an explosion tore apart the concrete housing of the reactor, blew the 1,000-ton safety cover off its top, and spewed radioactive particles high into the night sky. Now, the dominant feature on the surface weather map at the time of the explosion was high pressure over western Russia, which favored southeast low-level winds near Chernobyl. So radioactive particles were initially blown to the northwest, across Belarus, Lithuania, Latvia, and the Baltic Sea, and eventually to those sensors in Sweden. Chernobyl sits at 51 degrees latitude within the region where traveling highs and lows bring shifting winds every few days. And right after the explosion, some radioactivity also moved west into Germany, France, northern Italy, and even the UK. More than a week after the accident, hot radioactive gases were still escaping, carried south over Romania, Bulgaria, and Greece, and eventually across the Black Sea into Turkey. Though you can't see radioactive particles on a satellite image, you can on rare occasions see their footprint. Check out this visible image from May 2nd, 1986. Chernobyl is labeled just to the west of this cloud shield representing a mid-latitude low-pressure system. Now let's zoom in. You can see a dark streak extending to the southeast of Chernobyl. That's where the hot radioactive gases evaporated the clouds, producing a swath of clear skies, a feature called a nuclear distrail, sort of the opposite of a contrail, which is a cloudy swath surrounded by clear skies. This is the only nuclear distrail that I have ever seen. Even 30 years later, the city of Pripyat, just a few miles from the reactor and once home to 45,000 people, is still a ghost town, and an area extending about 20 miles in all directions from Chernobyl is pretty much uninhabited, except for a few hundred residents who refuse to leave. In 2011, Ukraine did open up this exclusion zone to tourists for brief visits. Stay tuned. The extended forecast is next.